of our collection account of the CPD income. We therefore do not have a summary of transactions in those accounts, and we cannot therefore ascertain the income and expenditure of those two accounts. In addition, we have a main transaction account at the Standard Chartered Bank. The bank statement that was availed to the council was from the month of August 2020, and members will note that in response to the President's statement to members of his letter of 9th November this year, we were provided with Annexure number 2 and Annexure number 3, which were statements from the month of April 2020 to August of 2020. In that period, we will note that the society spent over 66 million, which translates to over 700,000 per day. That amount is too outrageous and doesn't make sense. On the Arbitration Center Fund, we have an account with the Standard Chartered Bank. From that account, there are no transactions from that account. The question that therefore begs is, from where are we paying that International Arbitration Fund from? We cannot be spending money from the collection of this year, yet members paid for those funds. It is therefore important that we have an audit to ascertain and to give credibility to how we are spending our monies. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I will give a chronology of the events that lead to the uproar by members to date and the surge for an audit to be conducted forthwith. On March 3rd, 2020, the returning officer of the election held on 27th of February 2020 declared the president, 11 council members, and myself as duly elected. We assumed office on the 24th of March and were subsequently sworn in, or rather we took oath on the 23rd of July 2020 during the AGM. On the 4th of April 2020, by email, the council unanimously resolved that Senior Roslyn Doreen Adhiambo Odede, Bernard Kipkoech Ngetich, Mercy Kalondu Wambua, and myself will be the signatories of all the Law Society of Kenya bank accounts, which resolution was subsequently ratified and adopted during the council meeting of 16th of April 2020. I have attached to this statement the relevant portion of the minutes as supplied by Mercy Kalondu Wambua in her response dated 2nd October 2020. On 23rd July 2020, during the AGM, members observed that there were too many audit queries and tasked the council to source for auditors and, if need be, call for an SGM. And therefore, the financial statements that were tabled to members at the AGM were not adopted. The Staff Budget and Finance Committee, which I chair, was scheduled a meeting on the 31st of July 2020 to discuss, amongst other agendas, the half-year financial analysis of the society, but the said meeting did not take place, the said date having been declared a public holiday. The meeting was subsequently adjourned to the 7th of August 2020, and among the documents that were supplied to this committee was a draft of the half-year financial analysis. A resolution was made to request the chief accountant and the internal auditor to provide a self-explanatory financial analysis and the support documents thereof, as what had been provided to the Staff and Finance Committee was inadequate. The half-year financial analysis was first tabled before Council by the Chief Accountant, that is Mr. Owen Kibunja, and the Internal Auditor, Mr. Bagaya, in the meeting of Council of 13th July 2020, when we had sought as Council to know the financial position of the society. and the effect of the pandemic to our finances. The analysis tabled was said to be not satisfactory, and a resolution was again made by Council that the two officers be ordered, or rather requested, to table a properly done analysis to the Staff, Budget and Finance Committee. On the 7th of August 2020, the Staff, Budget and Finance Committee considered the financial analysis provided and summoned both the Chief Accountant, Mr. Owen Kibunja, and the Internal Auditor, Mr. Joab Bagaya, to explain some financial queries, as the report was not self-explanatory as earlier requested. I wish to point at this point that the committee was attended by all the members of the committee, which constitute 9 of us. 9 council members, save for 2 council members. All council members are members of this committee, and in attendance during the said meeting of 7th of August 2020 was the President of the Law Society of Kenya. He's authorized to attend any committee. Unanimous decision by 10 of us, 10 council members, was reached to have notices to show cause issued to these 2 officers for failure to comply with the earlier resolution that they table as self-explanatory reports. This report was now subsequently adopted in the council meeting of 10th of August 2020, and a further resolution was made unanimously by all 13 council members that the half-year financial statement be subjected to an in-depth audit alongside the 2018-2019 financials up to 31st August 2020. I have attached a relevant portion of the minutes to that effect, as supplied by Mercy Kalondu Wambua in her response to the charges of 14th of September 2020. It is noteworthy that as at 14th September 2020, the said notices to show cause had not been issued, and this also formed a basis for 2 charges, charge number 3 and 5 against Mercy Kalondu Wambua in the letter dated 14th September 2020. In the same meeting of 10th August 2020, Council unanimously resolved that the in-depth audit of the Society's account for the year 2018-2019 to 31st August 2020 should be conducted, and letters were to be issued inviting quotations from 3 firms. Council resolved to have 3 firms give us quotations, that is Pakarando, East Africa, Price, W. House Coopers, PwC, and KPMG, within 7 days thereof. I have also attached this statement, the relevant portion of the minutes, as supplied by Mercy Kalondu Wambua. The said letters were not issued within the stipulated timelines, and actually they were not issued until the 31st of August 2020, and as at 14th of September 2020, only Pakarando, East Africa, had provided a quotation. The Secretariat had prepared a report for consideration by Council, having received the quotation from Pakarando, East Africa, on the 7th of September 2020. I have provided copies of the forensic report prepared by the Secretariat and the quotations by Pakarando that was tabled before Council on the 14th of September 2020. Council in its meetings held on 13th July 2020 and in that of 10th August 2020 requested Mercy Kalondu Wambua to avail to the President and myself as the Chair of the Staff, Budget and Finance all bank statements of accounts held by the Society. But the same were not provided. In fact, only a few statements were provided in the evening of 14th of September 2020 after the Council had unanimously served her with a suspension letter. Having received these bank statements, some of which we are yet to be provided, there is need to submit the said bank statements together with the bank statements that are yet to be provided to scrutiny by experts and as resolved by Council unanimously in its meeting of 10th of August 2020. On the 26th of October 2020, the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Mr. Nelson Havi, wrote to the only audit firm that has so far availed its quotation, and which quotation was considered by Council in its meeting of 14th of September 2020, instructing them to conduct an in-depth forensic audit. I have also attached a copy of that letter, and the President has also signed an engagement letter with the said firm, and an invoice has been received by the Law Society of Kenya for settlement in order to have this audit commenced. I have attached a copy of the engagement letter and the invoice there too. I am mindful of the fact that this audit issue has torn our society right in the middle. An audit of the society's accounts and financials is inevitable. On the 11th of November 2020, the President of the Law Society of Kenya wrote an email to Mr. Bernard Kipkoech, Roslyn Odede, and myself, and Mr. Owen Kibunja, as signatories and chief accountants respectively, requesting us to fast-track settlement of the invoice so that this process of audit can be kick-started. I've also attached a copy of that email. In furtherance thereof, I, as the Chair of Staff and Budget and Finance Committee, and also a signatory to the LSK account, on the 12th of November 2020, I wrote to the Chief Accountant and copied the same email to my co-signatories, requesting them to facilitate the settlement of the said invoice so that we can pave way for the audit. A copy of that email is also attached to this statement. I urge Mr. Owen Kibunja, Mr. Kipkoech, and Ms. Roslyn Odede to proceed to facilitate and do as requested, as this issue of the audit has continued to divide the society left, right, and center. And if this situation is not arrested at the earliest opportunity, the fabric that formed the society will be torn in totality. I equally urge the members of the society to exercise restraint, calm, and patience as we await completion of the audit process. As the Vice President, I would also add that this society belongs to all of us, and we should strive to protect the society with all, and therefore any party that has an obligation to do something, let them do, so that we don't continue to divide this society. God bless the Law Society of Kenya. God bless us all. Thank you. I now invite the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Mr. Nelson Havi, to read his statement. Asanteni.
Friends, I was mindful of internal resistance to a forensic audit when I asked you at the AGM on the 23rd of July 2020 to appoint an auditor. Mr. James Ochengo Duol and Dr. Mercy Deche, I hope you remember how the discussion went. You told me to appoint one despite protestation on the floor of the AGM by the then Secretary, Mercy Kalondu Wambua, who could not explain questions on account of expenditure in the books. This issue, together with interferences with official communication to members by email, conduct of council meetings, and misuse of the society's monies, necessitated that I speak with you for your information and consideration. Ms. Herin Kabita has spoken on the notice dispatched to you by the former Secretary on the 13th of November 2020. It is evident from what Herin has pointed out that the former Secretary, in her attempts to explain how monies of the society have been dealt with, exposes how the elected leadership of the society, in this regard the Vice President and I in particular, have been kept in the dark on the major financial decisions taken on behalf of the society. On my part, I have not understood and cannot explain to you how Kenya shilling 66 million plus was utilized between the 1st of April 2020 and the 1st of July 2020. Besides, the statements and documents relied upon in the explanation given had not, despite persistent requests by the Vice President and I, been supplied to us as at the 14th of September 2020, when the former Secretary was suspended. Her termination on the 19th of October 2020 was based upon, amongst others, the failure or refusal to avail all bank statements of the society's accounts. The Vice President has dealt at length on the hurdles in the way of securing payment of the deposit to the auditor to enable the commencement of the forensic audit. It is my expectation that Council members, Madam Rose Lynn Odede and Mr. Bernard Ngetich, will rise to a greater calling and see the need to sign the necessary requisition papers in order that this exercise commences without any further delay, and a special general meeting held this year for you to consider the audit report. The exercise must be undertaken, and the two cannot hold us at ransom. It is incumbent upon me, as the elected servant ultimately answerable to you, to demand that these two council members perform their duty. The buck stops with me, and I must crack the whip with your support and blessings. I am not able to forward this statement and previous ones to you by email. The former secretary deleted my official email address on the 19th of October and has taken upon herself to communicate to you on the official email address of the society what she perceives to be decisions of the council. In the weekly newsletter of the 26th of October 2020, she released to you a resolution and statement claimed to have been made on the 19th of October 2020, reinstating her to office. On the 10th of November 2020, she notified the auditor not to proceed with the audit as engaged on the 9th of November 2020, again this time citing authority of the council. Further, on the 13th of November 2020, she misreported to you on the status of the forensic audit, citing authority of the council. The Vice President and I are not aware of any such acclaimed council decisions. This conduct borders on criminal behavior for which we may have to call in the Director of Public Prosecutions to take criminal legal action. I have learned from reports in the local dailies that a council meeting was held on the 9th of November and that certain decisions made and communicated to you. It is reported in the local dailies that I absconded the meeting. In the meeting, the former secretaries and the former president's known confidant, Mr. Steve Ogola, is alleged to have been instructed to take over the conduct of JR number E1100 of 2020, Allen Waiyaki Gishui versus the Law Society of Kenya, and compromise the case in which Mr. Allen Waiyaki Gishui seeks to block the consideration of 45 applications for conferment of rank and title of senior counsel. Any such a meeting was unlawful for several reasons. First, meetings of the council are called by the president or the secretary on the instructions of the president. I did not call for the meeting of the 9th November 2020 and could not have possibly instructed the former secretary to call for one. Mr. Bernard Ngetich is reported to have chaired the meeting of the 9th of November 2020. Everybody knows that Bernard Ngetich is not the president of the Law Society. He does not have the power to chair or call for meetings of council of the Law Society. Members may want to consider an appropriate remand against this conduct. Yesterday, it came to our attention that the former secretary and Mr. Ngetich booked conference and accommodation space on the 19th to the 22nd of November at the Enashipai Resort and Spa, ostensibly for an adjourned meeting of the council to be held on the 20th of November to appoint an auditor, and a retreat for the CPD committee to settle the CPD calendar. Look how ridiculous these developments are. It is the height of impunity and recklessness of the highest order for any council member or officer of the society to saddle you with millions of shillings for events that are not only unauthorized but are unnecessary in view of the society's impoverished financial status and ravaging effects of COVID-19. We have cancelled these two events to avert the risk of further financial loss to the society. There are those amongst us and in the public who claim that we are washing our dirty linen in public. Let me dissuade you of that notion. Examples abound of CEOs and public officers who, despite termination of services, cling to office to conceal their wrongdoing or just out of outright refusal to let go. In the judiciary, not so long ago, one went to the extent of mobilizing Parliament to initiate the removal of commissioners of the Judicial Service Commission to stop her removal from office. It took months to send her away in a spectacle that dominated the print and electronic media for months. The locks to doors of court chambers had to be changed to keep away two judges of the Supreme Court who had refused to go home upon retirement in 2016. The current management crisis at the IBC resulted substantially from an attempt by deep-seated interests to keep a fired CEO in office after the disputed 2017 presidential election. The Communications Authority of Kenya was treated to similar drama when a Director General refused to vacate office and the company house, dragging the chairman and the entire authority into an affray for months. The former secretary's refusal to leave office should be evaluated from this background. Friends, you must be wary of a contrived scheme by deep-seated interests inside and outside of the law society, which I'm duty-bound to disclose to you. Their intention is to frustrate the agenda of the brave new bar of restoring the lost glory of the society. In the midst of the wrangles in the council, you will no doubt see the hands of former council members who you rejected at the ballot, or others who feel overshadowed by our stellar performance. Does it not concern you that this group appears to know more about the whereabouts of your monies than the Vice President and myself? More fundamentally, though, are the many gains we have made in the last few months, which have icked the state. These include the demand for dissolution of Parliament to vindicate the two-thirds gender principle, our relentless quest for the swearing in of judges to ameliorate the backlog of cases now abounding in court, calling out and challenging unconstitutional administrative decisions to defend the rule of law and constitutionalism, and taking a firm position on the recruitment of the Chief Justice to guarantee the independence of the judiciary, to mention a few. Some people are definitely not happy with us. I do not want to be sidetracked from serving you in the manner I promised in my three-point agenda: to monitor legislation, defend the rule of law and constitutionalism, and protect practice law environment. We will not reconsider the removal of the former secretary as demanded by a few of you. Through mediation or a negotiated exit for the sake of quick, artificial internal peace and public calm. Waswahili husema imani haiji ila kwa ncha ya upanga. The society must move on and cannot be held hostage by one suspect former employee who is being sustained in office by individuals in the executive and some of our members who are determined to railroad us by maintaining a microphone in our boardroom and the affairs of the leadership of the Law Society of Kenya. The executive should stick to its lane and let the leadership of the Law Society work by helping it do its work. Friends, perhaps it is time you evaluated all of us in our performance as council with reference to our respective manifestos and ascertain where from emanates the problem. On our part, the Vice President, several council members, with members' interests at heart and I, are committed to pursuing the delivery of our agenda, no matter the turbulence caused by the executive and some of our members. Ms. Rosalind Odede, the senior and most experienced amongst us, has undertaken to me to ensure that we work together and succeed. I ask you to do your part by holding us accountable. But more importantly, by demanding all council members to come together and work with us in serving you diligently and gallantly. If we fail, you know what to do. Collect signatures and censure us friends. That is what is supposed to be done. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless the Law Society of Kenya. If there are questions, Madam Vice President, Madam Herin Kabita, and I will field them. If there are none, then we will disperse in peace. We are 13 in number. Thank you. Very valid question, Mr. Kaemba. Elections of the Law Society were held on the 27th of February. Council members were given a mandate that requires them to exercise their mind, not to poll, not to ballot. The question of removal of the secretary was a quasi-judicial question, one that involves legal consequences. It cannot lie before any court of law that somebody took a ballot, not informed by any legal considerations, to exonerate the CEO of the numerous grounds which we've highlighted. It is for that reason that members are entitled to know the problems we are facing at the Law Society are not solely internal. They could be external to a large extent, because it will appear to be expensive to maintain several council members as the conduit upon which the government can interfere with our activities. What better way to do it than to sustain one individual who they have been using throughout this period? And we have said we're not going to accommodate that. It is our responsibility as the Law Society of Kenya to assist the government in the administration of the rule of law. But we are not a government parastatal. When you came here in the morning, you saw some individuals claiming to be plainclothes officers, about 20 of them, who have been guarding Mercy Wambua since the 19th October 2020 when we fired her. What is the government's interest in the Law Society? Who walks around with 10 police officers, if not a state officer? This is not a state office. We don't want the state to interfere in the activities of the Law Society. We want the state to perform its duty, and we want the state to let us oversight the performance of its duties. It cannot have a mole in our council.
There has been calls maybe from the colleagues understand and calling for at least a ceasefire and have a handshake with the CEO of Havi.
The late Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings said, there can never be justice without truth. We're telling members close to 70 million of their monies have been stolen. Even when you go to court for a plea bargain, you must take plea first. The CEO has been fired. Let her leave. If she thinks she has a case, let her go to court. She cannot compromise the leadership of the Law Society and speak to a few members to railroad us into a mediation in order to exonerate her. That is the reason as to why the members decided on the 23rd of July that we do an audit. The audit will implicate people. We cannot be forced to give immunity to people who are subject to the audit. She has to go.
there must be a name. Whose hand are you talking about? And why do you think they have interest in this side? And lastly, you've also given an example of people whose laws have to be changed, their door locks. Why have you not changed the doors, the key locks of Massive and Web later?
Thank you, Gordon. A very valid question. Why is it personal? Are you seeing Havi alone here? But it's understandable when the Star says it's personal to Havi, because I accepted the bag and the baggage of leadership. I speak on behalf of the council and on behalf of the Law Society. The removal of the Secretary Mercy Wambua was not a decision by Nelson Havi. It was a decision by council. Some council members have decided to go around that decision. The second question you asked, who in the executive is behind our woes? Ask yourself, who is the lawyer of Mercy Wambua in the proceedings that led to our removal? Who is the lawyer of the Attorney General in the proceedings relating to the motion to expel him? Not so long ago, a meeting was held by the Attorney General and the Minister of Interior, and you saw some 2 senior advocates appearing in that meeting, indicating that they are representing the Law Society. They appeared with the former secretary. This tells you the individuals that I'm talking about. You've asked why we don't want to lock the door. Of course, we can lock the door. We can even evict her right now as we speak. But as lawyers, we are civil people. We propose to conduct our affairs in a civil manner. It is for that reason, therefore, that we need members to understand that the only reason why Mercy has refused to leave this office is so that she can continue falsifying records in an effort to forestall an audit that was demanded of by members of the Law Society. I do not stand to benefit anything, but it is my responsibility as the person who members will ask in the SGM and the AGM to explain why an audit has not been done, to take the leadership role and ensure, one, she's out of this place so that she doesn't continue falsifying records, and two, to ensure that the audit process commences in earnest, because members said we need an audit report for us to review in an SGM to be undertaken this year. We only have 2 months before the end of the year. Between July and now, much time has passed. When will we be able to give the members the SGM for them to interrogate the audit if the state continues interfering with the affairs of the Law Society? Gordon, you must understand it from that perspective.
Lastly, sir, with the colossal amount of demand that's alleged wired out of the account, have you called the CI to investigate so that rather than doing statements which can be from other products, CSA or other sensational statements, so that their funds together someone can be held legally accountable? And lastly, what did your colleagues in the profession, like people like now, like Junior, getting social media, that you conduct against the CEO, the amount of abuse of office and subject, you are removed from office.
You want to answer some? Okay, Gordon. I've told you the state has deep interest in this society. This Mercy Wambua is being brought here every morning with 20 policemen. You're asking me to go and report her to the police? Really? You are turning logic over its head.
Money has been lost. Money has been lost.
Now, it's not the government's money, it is our money. Under the law, we have what we call self-help mechanisms. That is why we're conducting an audit. And we cannot have somebody who failed to explain expenditure in the AGM sitting here trying to contradict directions that have been given towards the conduct of an audit. You've spoken about some other individuals I can't remember. They're saying that there is abuse of office. Abi's office here is being propagated by those individuals because we are here to clean the rot in this place. It's a Herculean task, but even if it takes the diversion of the river to clean these tables, I'm prepared to do that task. We will clean the tables here. They are rotting. So, I'm lost for breath. I think we call it a day.
Want an audit and Masumbo must go. We remember.
Biggie.
Yeah. Monsala, do you have some statements? Yeah.
We elected Havi, not Masumbo.